Welcome to Vocabify English.
Easy English and real-life conversation.
Today's critique focuses on an English language learning script that teaches students 8 natural alternatives to the phrase, I'm tired. Let's dive right into our first area for improvement. Modulating the conversational enthusiasm between the script's speakers will create a more authentic, focused learning environment.
Right, because the dynamic between the two speakers in this script, it really serves as the primary vehicle for the lesson. But right now, that vehicle is just running a bit off the road.
Yeah, I definitely felt that while reading it.
Exactly. The core weakness here is that the script relies heavily on continuous scripted affirmations and, artificial exclamations. We are seeing these constant, heavily manufactured interjections.
Like the constant praise back and forth?
Yes, exactly. Phrases like, wow, or that paints such a clear picture, and I am so ready. They literally happen after almost every single vocabulary introduction.
I noticed that too. So a key theme running through this material seems to be this constant mutual validation between the hosts. And honestly, as a listener, it distracts heavily from the core educational content.
It really does. It just makes the dialogue feel highly unnatural. But I think more importantly, it introduces what sociolinguists refer to as cognitive noise.
Wait, cognitive noise? Explain what that actually looks like in the brain of someone learning English. Are they, translating this banter in real time? Because to a native speaker, an interjection like, wow, great point, is basically invisible. We don't even really hear it.
Right? We just gloss right over it. But a non-native, beginner, or even an intermediate learner, they don't have that luxury. Their brain doesn't automatically filter out filler words, yet.
Oh, so they're trying to process everything as if it's all equally important.
Exactly. Their working memory is already operating at maximum capacity. So when they hear a host say, that paints such a clear picture, their brain pauses. It grabs the word paints, it grabs the word picture, and it tries to connect those literal concepts to the phrase, I'm tired.
Wow, that is a recipe for a massive semantic pileup.
It is. It causes a momentary pileup. They are looking for the educational signal, the actual lesson, but they are just getting flooded with conversational noise.
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. The suggestion is to ground the dialogue in realistic, value-add reactions that actually assist the learner, rather than relying on continuous mutual praise.
We need to shift away from this cheerleader dynamic and establish a true expert-practitioner dynamic.
Right. I mean, if I were rewriting this myself, my instinct might be to just cut the filler entirely and have a single narrator deliver the facts. But, the dual host format is central to the script's identity.
We definitely want to preserve the two hosts. The interplay is super valuable. It just needs to be repurposed. So let's look at the introduction of the first phrase, which is, I'm sleepy.
Okay, yeah, looking at it now.
Currently, after introducing it, one speaker reacts by saying, wow, that is such a soft, simple, and natural phrase. We can immediately replace that empty praise with a quick, high-value pronunciation tip.
Oh, I like that. What would that sound like?
The reacting speaker could just jump in and say, notice how native speakers link the words together here? I'm sleepy. The M sound leads right into the S.
That's great. That instantly transforms a moment of just empty praise into an actionable piece of linguistic advice. You keep the conversational baton pass between the hosts, but the baton actually has weight to it now.
Right. It gives the listener something to actually chew on. Let's try another one. Later, when they discuss the phrase, I'm wiped out, the script currently has a speaker say, I love the sound of that one. It feels so expressive and visual.
Yeah, which is just wasted real estate, again.
Completely wasted. Instead, the second speaker could briefly mention a real-world mistake a learner might make. They could jump in and say, just be careful not to say I'm wiped. You really need that word out at the end to sound natural.
Or they could even offer a tiny personal anecdote, right? Just to demonstrate the phrase in context.
Exactly. They could say something like, I always use this after a long international flight. Like when I landed in Tokyo last week, I told the receptionist I am completely wiped out.
Okay, so what I really like about this part is the attempt to be highly encouraging to the learner. Is there a risk that stripping away too much of this upbeat banter might make the lesson feel a bit clinical or intimidating for a beginner?
That is a very fair question. We never want the learner to feel like they are being lectured in a cold, austere classroom. But authenticity builds more trust than forced enthusiasm.
That makes sense. Adults don't really want to be talked down to.
Right.
When adults are learning a language, they want to feel competent and respected. By offering real, practical insights, instead of just saying wow all the time, you are respecting their intelligence. True confidence comes from mastering the nuances you provide them, not from hearing the hosts constantly complimenting each other.
Yeah, and you can maintain a warm, friendly tone just through your vocal delivery and a relaxed pacing, without having to write artificial excitement into the literal script.
Exactly. The warmth comes from the audio delivery, not from forcing the hosts into a loop of relentless positivity.
Streamlining the review segments can significantly enhance the script's pacing and respect the learner's time.
Yes, once we clear out that cognitive noise and dial in the conversational tone, we absolutely have to look at how the learner is actually processing the timeline of the lesson itself. Pacing is the lifeblood of educational audio.
It really is. Because if they get bored, they just tune out.
Right. And if the listener can't easily skim ahead, they are entirely at the mercy of the script's structural momentum. The glaring weakness in the current architecture is this standalone segment called pocket words.
Ah, yes. It drops in immediately after the introduction of the 8 phrases, doesn't it?
It does. And it essentially halts the forward momentum of the script entirely just to repeat the exact same definitions for exhausted, beat, drained, and wiped out.
They literally just learned them 2 minutes prior, and suddenly they are sitting through this dry recap that introduces zero new linguistic context. From a structural standpoint, this creates a massive lull.
It's a total roadblock. The learner has just absorbed 8 new concepts. And instead of taking those concepts for a test drive on the open road, the script forces them to sit at a red light and listen to the definitions all over again.
It just feels so passive.
It is. It fundamentally misinterprets how memory works in real-time learning. Passive repetition, just simply hearing the definition a second time, it does very little to build actual neural pathways.
As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that repetition aids memory. But this current structure feels a bit like packing a suitcase, immediately unpacking it to show the audience the contents, and then packing it again. How can we maintain the necessary repetition for language learners without stalling the narrative momentum?
That is a highly accurate analogy, the suitcase thing. Yes, repetition is the cornerstone of language acquisition, but we need active repetition, not passive repetition.
So how do we restructure it?
The suggestion here is to consolidate the recall mechanisms directly into the practical application phase. We want to maintain a dynamic, forward-moving structure where the repetition happens naturally through use, rather than through some static review segment.
Okay, so looking at the script's outline, there's a segment right after the review called Smooth It Out, where they take a basic beginner sentence and upgrade it. My instinct would be to just fuse these two sections together.
Yes, absolutely. Fusing them is the way to go. Instead of feeding the listener the answer during the application phase, make them work for it.
So building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of active retrieval? We just completely delete the pocket word segment, like lift it right out of the document.
I love that. Just cut it. And then we redesign the smooth it out section to literally force the brain to hunt for the vocabulary.
Let's roleplay how that blending works. Currently, in Smooth It Out, the host says, "Here is a basic sentence. I cannot go to the gym tonight because I am very tired." Let's upgrade it to say, "I am totally beat."
Which is just incredibly passive. It literally hands them the answer on a silver platter.
Exactly. Now let's inject some active recall. The speaker could prompt the audience with a question. They could say, "Okay, we want to upgrade the phrase, 'I am very tired' because our physical energy is completely gone. Which of our new phrases means our physical energy was completely washed away?"
And then you give the listener a 2-second pause right there. You let them feel that slight frustration, when the word is on the tip of their tongue. They search their mental database and they pull out wiped out.
That pause is so crucial.
That 2-second pause is where the actual learning happens. When a learner has to actively search their memory for a word, the neural pathway is strengthened exponentially.
And then, after the pause, you reveal the upgraded sentence, "I cannot go to the gym tonight. I am totally wiped out." You are doing the review and the application simultaneously.
Exactly. It changes the listener's posture from leaning back to leaning forward.
The pacing becomes incredibly tight because the momentum never stalls, and you are actually respecting the listener's time. But, could the evidence also support a different conclusion? Like the idea that beginners really need that slow, passive review to feel secure. Some might argue that active recall is just too stressful.
I hear that, but I think the counterargument to that is the reality of speaking a second language. In the real world, nobody pauses the conversation to give you a multiple-choice quiz.
Right, you have to actively retrieve the word mid-sentence while someone is staring at you.
Exactly. By building that slight cognitive friction into the script, we are actually preparing them for the reality of a live conversation. The friction is a necessary feature, not a bug.
Deepening the explanation of formality and social register will better equip learners to use these phrases appropriately in real-world scenarios.
This is arguably the most critical gap in the entire curriculum right now.
Yeah, because the pacing is tight now. The learner is actively recalling words, which is great. But that brings up a new vulnerability. It's fantastic that they can instantly recall the phrase, I'm beat, but what happens if they use it in the entirely wrong context?
Exactly. When you teach vocabulary to second language learners, giving them the literal definition is only half the battle. The other half is teaching them the sociolinguistic rules of when they are actually allowed to use it.
And that's where the original text falls short.
Right. The core weakness in this material is that while it successfully distinguishes between physical fatigue, like beat, and mental fatigue, like drained, it completely glosses over workplace appropriateness and power dynamics.
Expand on that for a second. When we say sociolinguistic rules, why is that such a massive hurdle for second language learners? Aren't they just, translating the power dynamics from their native language?
Well, no, because power dynamics do not map one-to-one across cultures, and neither do the linguistic tools used to navigate them.
Can you give an example?
Sure. In languages like Korean or Japanese, honorifics and formality are literally baked right into the verb conjugations. The grammar itself forces you to acknowledge the hierarchy of the room.
Oh, interesting. So you can't even form a sentence without establishing who is in charge.
Right, but English doesn't have that built-in grammatical safety net. Instead, English relies heavily on vocabulary choice, tone, and register to show deference. A non-native speaker does not have an innate intuition for which English phrases carry a protective layer of formality and which ones are incredibly intimate or just casual.
The script does mention, in one brief aside, that dead tired is informal.
Yes, that's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered how a non-native speaker interprets informal in a vacuum. Noting that one phrase is informal leaves the learner completely guessing for the other 7 phrases.
That's a great point. Is it acceptable to tell a senior manager you are running on empty?
Exactly. Or is drained appropriate for a formal client presentation? If a learner takes this script at face value, they might walk into an annual performance review with their CEO, sit down, and sigh, I am totally beat.
Oh man, that will be a disaster. Let's look closely at this section discussing the phrase, I'm drained. The material makes a strong case for mental tiredness here. But building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of power dynamics in a second language?
It completely shifts how we have to teach it. If an employee tells a manager they are drained versus telling them they are beat, those two phrases signal completely different levels of professional respect. Power dynamics dictate language choice.
Right. When you are speaking to someone with more power, a boss, a client, your language requires a formal register.
And when you are speaking to peers or subordinates, you can strip that layer away. So the suggestion here is to systematically categorize every single phrase by formal, casual, and professional usage. We need to provide clear and consistent boundaries for the learner. Do not leave them guessing.
So how do we make that categorization instantly digestible for someone who is already juggling grammar and pronunciation? Like a numerical scale, rating phrases from a level 1 to a level 5 on formality? It's okay, but it feels a bit academic.
Yeah, a bit dry. Could we anchor it in physical spaces instead? Like giving the learner a mental map of an office or a house?
Oh, I love that. Using situational tags as each phrase is taught. Imagine using 3 distinct buckets: the boardroom, the break room, and the living room.
Oh, that is incredibly vivid. It instantly communicates the social stakes of the vocabulary without needing a long, boring lecture on sociolinguistics.
Right? So when the script discusses drained, the speaker explicitly mentions this phrase belongs in the boardroom. It is excellent for a corporate setting.
Yes, because saying, "My brain is drained" to a manager after a long meeting shows professionalism. It highlights mental effort and dedication, not just physical laziness. You are giving the learner absolute permission to use it in a high-stakes environment.
And conversely, you explicitly label "I'm beat" with the living room tag. You tell the learner, this is strictly for friends, family, and casual peers sitting on the couch. Do not take this phrase into the boardroom or your manager will think you lack professional boundaries.
That is perfect. By providing these concrete, situational boundaries, you are giving the learner armor. You're actively protecting them from the anxiety of accidental offense.
Is there a risk, though, that focusing solely on these 3 tags might overlook some nuance? I mean, human interaction is pretty messy.
Sure, it is messy. But for a learner who is desperate for a baseline of social calibration, these tags offer a necessary framework. When an educational script focuses purely on the literal meaning, like the difference between a tired body and a tired brain, it just completely misses the human element.
And the human element is fraught with social hierarchies.
Exactly. If this script takes the time to map out the power dynamics for all 8 phrases using those tags, it elevates itself from a basic vocabulary list to a high-level masterclass in cultural communication.
It's the difference between handing someone a dictionary and teaching them how to actually read the room. This has been a deeply constructive breakdown.
It really has.
To recap today's critique, the source material can be significantly strengthened by implementing 3 key structural and stylistic shifts. First, dial back the artificial banter in favor of authentic, value-driven reactions. Replace the constant mutual praise with actionable pronunciation tips, common mistakes, or short cultural anecdotes.
Right, because that lowers the cognitive noise and respects the learner's intelligence.
Exactly. Second, merge the standalone pocket words review directly into the Smooth It Out application segment. Eliminate passive review entirely.
By forcing the listener to actively recall the vocabulary to upgrade a sentence, you vastly improve the script's pacing and capitalize on how neural pathways are actually formed.
Yes. And finally, establish a clear visual formality scale, like the boardroom, break room, and living room tags, for every single phrase. This tackles the complex sociolinguistic rules of English, giving learners absolute confidence in professional settings and protecting them from accidental social missteps. Thank you for sharing your material with us, and we highly encourage you to submit your next draft for another critique.
The core foundation of this material is genuinely strong. It just needs that final layer of structural and sociolinguistic polish to truly serve the audience.
Because at the end of the day, we don't want to just give language learners a guided tour of a sterile plastic model home. We want to hand them the keys, point out the scuff marks on the floor, and show them how to actually live there.